What's going on, BBN? Welcome to the Kentucky Connection podcast, a brand new Kentucky sports podcast where me and my boy Larrin will be talking about UK sports, basketball, and football primarily. We'll also have some guests on every now and then. We'll be going live from the Kentucky Cavalry YouTube account. We'll also be posting the MP3 files on Spotify so you can listen, wherever you feel like it. So what's up, Larrin? How you doing, bro?
Doing good.
Man, we've been talking about making this podcast for over a year now and finally get around to it.
Yeah, it's been a hot minute. We've been discussing this. We talked about it. I know last summer before I went off to college, and then I just got too busy. I never got around to it.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, me and Larrin have been talking to each other through like Twitter DMs, just talking about different things going on with UK, just kind of having discussions about UK sports through DMs, just talking about it. And, a while ago we decided, hey, I think it'd be a good idea if both of us were to just hop on a podcast and have these same types of discussions, except in voice form. So I'm glad we were able to finally get it going.
Yeah, it's definitely been something in the works, and now it's finally coming to fruition.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we can slide into our first topic, which today, the first topic is the transfer portal and how it's impacted UK basketball. Kind of talking about, the guys we've been looking at, some of the guys we've missed out on. There's been a lot of guys who have made their decision to go somewhere else. Some guys that we've been heavily interested in, like Baylor Shireman out of South Dakota State and different guys like that. So how do you feel about the transfer portal so far? I think this is the first year where we've really been like looking at a whole bunch of different guys. I mean, we dabbled in it last season, but it seems like this season we've been a lot more invested in it.
I feel like dabble is like a loose term because I know last year we took like 4 CJ Frederick, Severe Wheeler.
That's true.
Shebue, and who's the other one?
Kellen Grady. Yeah,
Kellen
that's
Grady,
true.
yeah.
We did bring in a bunch last year.
And then this year we only have one so far, which is Antonio Reeves, which I feel like he'll be an instant bucket getter for us. I mean, there was a lot of prospects that we rush out to, but it never seemed like anything really came up from that. It was just reaching out, seeing like, hey, are you interested?
Right. It seems to me like Coach Cal is very strict on the type of player that he wants. I remember when Baylor Shireman from South Dakota State hit the transfer portal and I looked at his stats and watched some of his film, I was just in my head just begging Coach Cal, please bring this guy to UK. And then, some things come out about how Baylor was expecting a certain amount of NIL compensation and he wanted to be the number one option. So we kind of just stopped talking to him. He ended up committing to Creighton. But I feel like Coach Cal's just very picky when it comes to these guys in the portal. He probably told Antonio Reeves, like, hey, I know you're a bucket, but you're not going to be an instant starter. You're going to have to work your way through this. And he wants guys who are willing to do stuff like that.
Yeah, I watched Baylor's highlights a little bit before I went to the gym one day. I really wanted him, but at the same time, Cal's never been one to bend rules, and with this whole NIL thing, everything's still up in the air. So, I mean, after Baylor committed to Creighton, didn't the NCAA come out and try to fix a bunch of that?
Yeah. After he committed to Creighton, it seemed like, I mean, I don't know if they had any correlation to each other, but after he committed to Creighton, the NCAA came out and said they're tightening their NIL rules and they're going to start like punishing schools for promising money before those guys come. Basically you can't use a specific number of NIL money to convince a player to come. You can't tell a player, hey, we'll give you at least $1 million to come play for us. That's against the rules now.
Yeah, I know the one that really started it was the Isaiah Wong situation with Miami. I know that one is what really had it going. And then
Right.
wasn't there another one that involved the Kansas State player?
Nigel Pack. I actually didn't look into that. I haven't really heard much about that one. I know that he also ended up at Miami, didn't he?
I think so, and I think those two alone, because the boosters were promising money before they even committed, or before Wong hit the portal or was going to, and then before Pack committed.
Well, I just remember being like, what, when I saw the announcement from Isaiah Wong about like, if y'all don't up my NIL compensation, I'm leaving. Like that was the first time we've seen somebody just straight up threaten his school with like, hey, I'm going to leave if you don't pay me more money. So that was crazy. And I think that's an initial sign that this NIL stuff is just a little too out of control right now. We definitely need to, get a little tighter on the rule set with it.
Yeah, and after all that, and then the Baylor Shireman situation, didn't TJ Beisner, is that how you pronounce it on Twitter? Didn't he
Mhm.
go live with his tweets?
Yeah, and is he I'm not entirely sure, but isn't he on the staff now? Like, I don't know if I saw that Cal, like, hired him or something, or somebody hired him at the university to kinda, control this NIL stuff for
Yeah,
UK.
I think he is on staff. As far as position wise, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure he is on staff.
Yeah, I mean, his tweets mentioned something about, like Coach Cal just straight up will not promise these guys anything NIL related. And I remember there's a bunch of Kentucky guys kind of mad at Coach Cal, like, or a bunch of Kentucky fans kind of mad at Coach Cal saying stuff like, oh, why are you not taking advantage of NIL like the rest of these schools are? But then very shortly after Beisner's tweets came out, the NCAA released an official statement saying that they're going to start tightening up the rules and stuff. So it seems like Coach Cal knew all along that if he does anything too out of the ordinary, that he's going to get in trouble, just like some of these other schools will.
Yeah, I have it pulled up right now on my phone. TJ Beisner basically said that we will not offer anyone money through NIL. Um, but he did say that if deals come with players that commit, like after they commit, by all means go for it. But
Right.
we will not promise before they commit.
And I feel like most recruits should know that if you come to UK, you're gonna make a lot of NIL money. Like, I don't feel like that's something we have to promise these kids because, I mean, Oscar, now that he's fully cleared with the NIL stuff, he's gonna make a ton of money. Ty Ty made 6 figures last year and was driving around in a Porsche. Shaedon Sharpe's never even played a game for us, and he's making a lot of NIL money. So I think these recruits know they don't have to be promised anything by UK. They know they're gonna make a lot of money. They know how crazy this fan base is, and all these businesses around Lexington, like, they're going to be paying these guys. So I feel like that's not even really a concern as much as some of these fans think it is.
Yeah, no. If you come to Kentucky with the branding that we have and the fan base, you're gonna get NIL money. That's just a given at Kentucky. There's even the small one. Like I know Ty Ty had one with Fazoli's, the triple threat,
Right.
and then Wheeler has one with Steak and Shake, I think. So like even small places like that are still connected to Kentucky and are still doing NIL deals.
Right. So when it comes to these transfers and stuff, so, some of these guys are they're looking to be promised, because Isaiah Wong at Miami, he's a decent college player. He probably doesn't have much of an NBA future, at least not a high level NBA future. So I could see why a guy like him would want to take as much advantage of NIL as possible. But again, these guys are hiring these NIL agents and people to handle their NIL deals and stuff, and I'm guaranteeing, like, these agents are telling these players, hey, you can make way more money than you are. You need to go out and like, I'm sure his agent told him to threaten the university and stuff, and it backfired. He pulled his name out of the portal. I think he pulled his name out of the portal, but he, like, backtracked on that. He was like, no, I'm actually not demanding any more money, because I think stuff like that can get these kids in trouble. All right, moving on to our next topic today, the current Kentucky basketball roster. We're going to give our thoughts on how we feel about it. Who we think our starting five is going to be, how we feel about the current depth. If we don't land another recruit or another transfer, and we don't get any news about, like, Shaedon Sharpe coming back or anything, are we currently comfortable with how the roster looks? Do you feel comfortable with how the roster is right now if we don't add anything? Like, if nothing changes, do you think that we're in good shape?
I personally do think we're in good shape. You lose Washington, but you still have Wheeler, who was, I think he led the SEC in assists. CJ Frederick, you get him back from injury. He's a knockdown sharpshooter, like what, 47, 48% in his career.
Mhm. Right.
Uh, then Damian Collins is returning. I think if he puts on enough weight, he'll be a force around the rim, rebounding. Obviously, he's a freakish athlete. And then Lance Ware, Oscar Shibwe, yeah, Jacob Toppin's expected to come back. So I mean, right now I like this roster. Didn't even
Right.
mention Antonio Reeves.
Yeah, and not to mention the recruits we have coming in as well. Like, 2 top 15 players. Adu Thiero is more of a project piece, but yeah, I agree. I feel good about our current roster. Losing Keon to the transfer portal, in my opinion, doesn't hurt us too much. I think that actually needed to happen so that we could fully get what we need to get out of Jacob Toppin and Damian Collins at the power forward position. I think Toppin's the day one starter at power forward, but Damian Collins is so talented that if he develops the way he should develop, I think there's no way you can keep him off the court. Just like you said, he's a freak athlete. He's got great instincts when it comes to blocking shots, and he's shown his ability to stretch the floor as well. Like in the Big Blue Madness game last year, before the season started, he hit like a couple threes. I think we know that he can shoot. If you look at his high school highlights, he hit threes at a decent rate. He hit mid range jump shots at a decent rate. So I think he's going to be able to stretch the floor more than people think, and then catching lobs and all that. It really just comes down to his physicality. Can he handle the physicality of the SEC? Last year he couldn't. He was too skinny. He was too weak. He got bullied sometimes. But we hired a new strength coach, I believe.
Yeah, the Purdue associate.
Right. So, getting a new strength coach in there, maybe he's going to get in there and completely transform Damian, because that's really the only thing holding him back at this point is a little bit of inexperience. And then just if he can get the physicality down pat and he can be able to handle, being bodied in the paint, he's got the tools to be insanely good.
Yeah, they have him on like a 5,000 calorie diet, I think, which if you're eating that much a day, I hope you put on weight.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And just looking at the rest of that roster, not even just talking about Damian, we've like if I could predict my starting five right now, we've got Xavier Wheeler at point, who not only did he lead the SEC in assists, he led all of Power 5 in assists. He was number one in all of Power 5 basketball in assists. So all these people who are like, Xavier Wheeler, he holds us back. He's not a good player just because he had some shooting issues and some turnover issues. Like, yeah, but he's a good point guard. He's an amazing full court point guard when it comes to transition. He kind of struggles in the half court because he's not a consistent shooter, but statistically, towards the end of SEC play last season, I think he shot like 38 or 35% from three in SEC play, which is really solid numbers. So if he can turn that into consistency, he's a good defender. He's electric. He's the best passer in the country. So him at point, he'll be a senior next year. That's big. And then I predict Cason Wallace to be the starting two right off the bat. Like no matter who's back, unless Shaedon Sharpe comes back, Cason is the two without a doubt. Like he's probably, I said this in a TikTok the other day, I think he's the highest caliber player we've gotten in a while. Like Ty was good, and like last year, we got BJ Boston, who was a top 5 recruit. He didn't work out like intended, but I don't know if we've gotten a player of Cason Wallace's caliber in a while, like in terms of just how good he is.
He's the thing about him is that he's like versatile. He can do it all from running the one. He can play off ball at the two. His defense is amazing. If you watch the was it the Jordan Brand or the Allison?
Yeah, the Jordan
Iverson
Brand Classic, I think.
Yeah, if you watch those two, I mean, he had that one double pump underneath the block dunk.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
I mean, he's a freak athlete in himself. So I mean, I would put Wallace at the two too.
In terms of high school defensive guards, I don't know if I've seen a guard as advanced as him defensively in a really long time. Like he's got great instincts on ball. He has a high defensive IQ. He doesn't get stopped by screens very often because, like, if you just look at him in terms of his body, he's just built. Like, I don't remember the last time we had a guard come in who was that physically ready. Like he's huge, like for a guard. Like he's in great shape. He's shredded, very strong, and that's the type of thing that's going to help him when it comes to finishing at the rim offensively. Like we already know he's there defensively. We already know he's a good rebounder. We already know he's athletic. The question mark is more so on offense. Can he shoot consistently? We know he's got a great floater, and we know he can finish at the rim. So I really the only thing is, can he shoot the three? Which, from what I've watched, I don't think is too much of a concern.
No, I honestly think since beginning of his senior year to now, his three balls improved from watching highlights. So
Yeah.
I don't have no problem in him. I don't have any fears in him not being able to shoot the three. It's
Right.
just, can he adjust quickly to become a starting two guard in the SEC from day one?
And I think the perfect comparison for him as a player is Drew Holiday. I saw somebody make a Drew Holiday comp for Cason Wallace, and the light just went off my head. I'm like, that's exactly who he is. He's an elite on-ball defender. He's very strong, solid, very built guard. Could play the one or the two. Holiday started off his career in the NBA at playing the point, and then he slowly transitioned into being more of a combo guard, and I think that's what Cason is. Holiday's not an amazing three-point shooter, but he can knock it down. He's got a decent enough offensive game, good playmaker. Like I think that's just the perfect comparison, Cason Wallace to Drew Holiday.
Yeah, I saw that same tweet. I 100% agree. For the three, I don't have any idea who I'd put right now.
I think it. Of course, this is all hinging on if Shaedon Sharpe doesn't come back. Which, I mean, if we had to take a guess, he's not coming back.
Yeah, no, I think he's
So
got to.
I think as of right now, the most likely scenario is Antonio Reeves plugging in at the 3. But I could see Chris Livingston potentially starting, if they like his upside more. But if you have a Xavier Wheeler, Cason Wallace, Chris Livingston starting like top 3, I just don't know if there's enough shooting there. So I think Reeves kind of has to be the starter in that instance, at least for now, because Livingston can shoot, but he's not going to be a consistently great 3-point shooter coming in as a freshman. So I think we need one of those guys just so we have a shooter on the floor. Because, again, I mean, Cason Wallace is a question mark with his shooting. We don't know if Xavier is going to take any strides when it comes to his shooting. So I feel like Reeves is going to have to plug in as the starting 3 so that we can have his shooting. He shot 40% from 3 at Illinois State.
I mean, if you think about it, Reeves didn't he set a commitment date, or it was like he was close? There was rumblings he was close, and then he released a top 5 on Friday, and then Saturday morning he committed after Sharpe was ruled eligible for the draft.
Yeah, I mean, I remember there was reports that he was already committed silently and he was just waiting and that he was going to make an announcement. And then instead of making an announcement, he released a top 5 and everybody's like, oh my gosh, we're not getting Antonio Reeves. And then, and then the news came out that Sharpe was eligible. And then the next day, Reeves committed. So I do think that pretty much that right there tells us what's going to happen with Shaedon Sharpe.
Yeah. So you got Wheeler. We think Wallace. We think Reeves.
Mm-hmm.
I think the 4 and the 5 are self-explanatory. Top and Sheboy.
Right. Yeah. At least for the beginning of the year, there's no debating who the 4 and the 5 are going to be.
Yeah, I think if Toppin, so he has his name in the draft right now, which he's just testing the waters. Calipari's already said he thinks he's coming back. If Toppin can knock down threes consistently, like he hit like 2 or 3 last year. I think 1 against Kansas, 1 against LSU in the corner at the buzzer at half. But if he can knock it down consistently, I think he has solidified us the starting 4 for the year.
Yeah, I mean, unless Damian Collins develops into Anthony Davis, then yeah, I think Jacob Toppin is probably the surefire. I mean, skill set wise, people are really underrating Collins. People think that Collins is just an athlete, but the guy has the intangibles. He's got a jump shot. Like if you watch his mechanics when he shoots, he has great mechanics, especially for a 6'10" guy with a crazy wingspan. Like Collins is one of those guys who, if he takes a big leap, like imagine if statistically he takes a leap similar to PJ Washington from his freshman to sophomore year. If he makes that much development, it's going to be hard to keep him off the court. But like you said, if Toppin develops a 3-point shot, Toppin is already an elite defender from 1 through 5. He can switch on to guards. He can play in the paint. His athleticism makes him a decent shot blocker, a great defensive rebounder. He's also offensively, he's a great playmaker. There were times where he was like playing like a point forward. Sometimes I think he had like 7 or 8 assists in a game one time this year. Like, so he can pass, obviously he's a great athlete, so he can dunk and, catch lobs and stuff. But the only thing missing for Jacob Toppin is that consistently hitting a mid-range to 3-point shot. And I think not only will he be a year-long starter if he develops that, but he could play his way into being a first-round selection similar to his brother. His brother was a senior at Dayton, it took him 4 years to develop into a great player, but once he developed into a great player, he was a lottery pick. So I'm not saying Jacob will be a lottery pick, but I think similar production can happen.
I think if Jacob gets the right feedback from the NBA, I could see him being a mid to early first rounder in next year's draft.
Right. I mean, completely dependent on his offensive development. I mean, he's got to be more aggressive with the mid-range shots, and then he's got to start taking more threes. He hit a couple threes last year. He towards the end of the season, he started trying to be more of a Keon Brooks contributor offensively with like the pick and pop into the mid-range, and he took a lot more mid-range shots at the end of the year. You could tell the coaching staff was pushing for him to shoot more. So, I mean, if Toppin develops that jump shot, he's got he's got the playmaking, he's got the defense, he's got the rebounding, the athleticism. It's really just dependent on that jump shot.
100%, I agree on that. And then obviously Sheboy, He's going to be starting at the 5 from day one. There's no one, no one's
No,
taking his spot.
no one will take his spot all year. And honestly, I wasn't surprised he came back. Like I kind of figured it was going to happen as long as he got his NIL stuff figured out. But you can't put into words how huge that is for this team. Like to return the National Player of the Year, a guy who completely carried the team for most of the season. Like I feel like during the season, we didn't realize how much he was carrying us. But like, if we didn't have Oscar on last year's team, I really don't know if that team is even a tournament squad. Like, we had the decent guard play, but we didn't have nearly enough production in the front court. I think if we don't have Oscar, I don't think we have nearly the season that we had.
Yeah, if Oscar didn't commit to Kentucky, you had Lance Ware, but who would the other center have been this year? We don't know that.
Maybe Jalen Duren, if the spot was open, maybe he would have come to us instead of Memphis, but I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that one either. But
So,
I feel like if Lance can contribute this year, we'll have a solid 5 spot.
oh yeah, and like now that we've talked about the starting lineup, looking at the bench, there's question marks on the backup point guard position. Are we going to dip back into the portal and kind of figure out, who maybe grab a backup point guard from the portal? There's not really many options right now. Is Adu Fierro going to be good enough to contribute right off the bat as a backup point guard? Obviously we know CJ Frederick, as long as he can stay healthy, knock on wood that he can stay healthy. Cause like, I want to see him so bad. I think he can slide into that Davion Mintz role. He's a great 3-and-D wing piece as long as he can stay healthy. And then, Chris Livingston would be coming off the bench, most likely. Having a top 15 5-star recruit, potential first-round pick coming off the bench is massive. And then Collins at the 4, backup 4, and then, of course, Lance. And, Lance will be a junior, right, next year?
Yeah, because his first year was the Terrence BJ year.
Okay, so yeah, he'll be a junior next year, and he's probably not going to see the floor much because of Oscar, but he's a guy who, like, I've seen a lot of Kentucky fans act like Lance is just garbage and that he never did anything, but the guy barely played this year because of Lance, and then when he did play, he had some nice blocks, he sets hard screens, he's a good hustle player, he gets in the heads of that's my favorite thing about him. He's the biggest trash talker on the team. Dude averages 1 point and 1 board, and he's the best trash talker on the team. Like,
Yeah, he's like the biggest dog on the team.
yeah, he gets into the opponent's head. We saw multiple instances where guys were trying to fight him, dude. Like he just knows how to get. He's like our Patrick Beverly, our guy who can just come in and just piss people off. Like that's what I love the most about Lance. I love it. He's got a dog mentality, and he was a 5-star recruit. The guy has the intangibles. He's got the size. He's a broad-shouldered, big guy with good rim protection. So I'm excited to see, how Lance develops.
Yeah, if you look at his freshman year or sophomore year, the way his body changed, and the fact that he's coming back for a junior year, I think he is the definition of trusting the process.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you just look at Nick Richards. Nick Richards is a perfect example. And I mean, Lance isn't going to have the opportunity this year that Nick Richards had as a junior, but Nick Richards was a guy that dude could have pulled an EJ Montgomery and gone pro after his sophomore year, even though he knew he wasn't going to get drafted. But instead, he did what nobody else has really done. He pulled the Willie Cauley-Stein route where he said, I'm gonna stay, and then that paid off for him as a junior. He was an All-American. So I don't know if Lance has that in him. I'm not sure if senior Lance Ware is an All-American, but trusting the process has worked for a lot of guys in the past at UK. So I think that I think him being there, developing under this coaching staff, playing against Oscar Tshiebwe every day is going to make it's going to give you the physicality. It's going to make you a lot better, especially on the defensive end. So, yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see how many strides Lance Ware takes with his development.
And just to talk about CJ Frederick one more time before we get to the next topic. If I remember correctly, I think I saw a tweet where he went 78 for 164 in 2 seasons at Iowa. And that's 47.5%, so 48, 47%. You get that coming back this year and possibly off the bench.
Yeah, I mean, that type of guy coming off your bench, he was a starter for Iowa. And Real quick, I will say I think some Kentucky fans' expectations are a little high for CJ because as a starter at Iowa in 2 seasons, I think he averaged like 7, 8 points per game as a starter. So he is a great shooter, but he's not a guy who's going to be searching for his shot. I feel like Davion Mintz was more aggressive with searching for his shot. Guys like that. I don't think he's going to be a dude who comes out and shoots 10 plus shots every game. He's going to be a guy who gets to his spots, and if he's open, he'll knock down the shot. But I think people expect him to replace Kellen Grady's production or even replace Davion Mintz's scoring production. And I just don't think that's quite what he is. He is a really good on the defensive end. People don't talk about that. He's a good on-ball defender. He's a solid rebounder. What is he, 6'5", 6'6"? Like, he's got the size, but he is just a catch and shoot knockdown shooter. Sometimes he can step in and hit the floater, but I think we need to pump the brakes on our expectations for him just a little bit.
Yeah, let him. He's had a year off. Let him get acclimated to playing again. Let him get used to it, and then I think we can make a fair judgment then.
Right. Overall, I like the roster. I think from top to bottom, it's really solid. But the crazy thing is there's still room to grow. There's still room to improve. There's still potential guys to be added. Maybe they shock the world and Shaedon Sharpe doesn't like his draft grade and he's like, you know what, I'm gonna come back and be the number 1 pick. And then at that point, that takes us from we're surefire top 5 to national championship or bust. If Shaedon Sharpe's on that team next year, it's national championship or bust. And that segues into our next topic, talking about Shaedon Sharpe. So just what's your thoughts on everything that's gone down with Shaedon? All this. This is probably the weirdest situation I've ever seen at UK. Like, obviously the Enes Kanter situation where he just wasn't eligible because he made money professionally in Turkey or wherever he was. That made a little bit of sense because it's like, okay, he played professionally. He can't play. That's just one of the rules. Obviously, he still should have played. But this is easily one of the weirdest situations I've ever seen at UK.
So my stance on Shaedon Sharpe, he committed to Kentucky, and I was ecstatic. He chose us over, I think, Kansas, Oklahoma State, the G League, a few others, and being the number 1 player, and then he came in early. I mean, he had time to get used to our system, and I listen to Aaron Torres a lot, and he stays up to date on everything. I had heard that when our guards went down, so Tai with the ankle injury, and then Wheeler, he had problems staying healthy this year. I heard that Shaedon's family and Shaedon wanted him to play, even Cal, but it was his mentor that didn't want him to play.
Yeah, and that's this thing that's it's kind of become a meme on UK Twitter, just like, wow, all my homies hate Dwayne Washington. Like,
Yep.
that whole situation, and that's easily the most frustrating part of the whole thing. It's like I would have been fine with him playing half the year and then going pro. Like, if that's what he felt like he needed to do, fine. But the fact that his handler went against his wishes, went against his family's wishes, and said, no, your best move is to just sit out, do nothing, and go pro. All the while he's telling Coach Cal and he's telling the staff, we'll be back next year, 100% we'll be back next year, while he's secretly talking to these NBA teams and, talking to the NBA saying he'll definitely be in the draft. It's infuriating that we were just lied to straight to our face. And people want to blame Coach Cal and people want to blame Shaedon. And it's just he's a kid who's being handled by somebody. It's not Shaedon's fault. And then Coach Cal, he did what he could. He tried to get the kid to play, and his handler convinced Shaedon not to. So this whole situation is just completely out of control. It's out of anybody's control. We blame Dwayne Washington for this. It's not Shaedon's fault. It's not Coach Cal's fault. And yeah, I mean, number 1 recruit, man. I wish he didn't. When's the last time we landed number 1 recruit? Was it Scal? Was Scal the last number 1 recruit we landed?
Was Scal number 1?
He was in some places. I think I don't know who else was in that class, but
Wasn't that the class with Ben Simmons as well?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, but I mean, Simmons was. I think there was like 2 sites that had Scal number 1 and 2 sites that had Ben number 1, but Scal was number 1 somewhere. So I don't know. I just can't remember the last like number 1 overall recruit we got who was ranked number 1 anywhere.
Yeah, I think based on who you look at, I think it was Scal was our last number 1 recruit.
Yeah, so it's like finally, okay, finally we're back. We landed a number 1 recruit. I think we already had Kaysen and Chris committed at the time before Shaedon committed. if
I
I'm not
think so.
mistaken.
Yep.
So it's like we had 2 top 10 players, then we added the number 1 player, and it's like, okay, we're back. Like finally, one of Coach Cal's classic elite recruiting classes, plus the transfer portal, we're chilling. And then this whole it's just so demoralizing that we could have had a surefire top 5 pick play, and we wouldn't have lost to St. Peter's if Shaedon Sharpe was playing. I'll tell you that much.
Oh, 100%. That game, Oscar had us in his duffel bag.
Mm-hmm.
It was, I think Oscar had 30 and 18 with like 3 or 4 blocks that game.
Yeah, Oscar did everything he could, man. And if we had Shaedon, we wouldn't have had to force Ty to play through injury. If we had Shaedon, we wouldn't, because I think the report came out that Kellen Grady was playing on 2 foot of plantar fasciitis at the end of the season. And I've had plantar fasciitis before. You literally can't walk. Like there's no way he was playing completely untreated. They had to inject some painkillers in his foot or something, because there's no way he was running around out there with double plantar fasciitis.
In
So
the same report, he was saying that the next morning after games, he was crawling to the bathroom.
yeah, he literally, and I believe him, because like I said, I've had it before, and it's I had it in 1 foot, so I was able to hop around. But if I tried to put pressure on it, dude, it's like that you're just not walking normally, much less running on a foot with plantar fasciitis. So, we would have been able to rest Kellen a little bit more. The only guard who was playing somewhat normally by the end of the year was Davion Mintz. He's the only guy who was playing like uninjured, and he was playing all right by the end of the year. But Xavier was playing through injury. He got concussed. He had whiplash. Like he was really hurt multiple times. It doesn't seem like he ever fully recovered. And then of course he hurt his leg 2 or 3 times, never fully recovered. And then Kellen was playing hurt. So if we had that elite top 5 NBA selection playing shooting guard for us, playing on the wing for us, we would not have had to play those guys through injury. And if you let like a starting 5 of Xavier, even let's just say we have the same starting 5, but we're bringing Shaedon off the bench. Even that alone, there's no way we lose to St. Peter's. And with the National Player of the Year, 2 lottery picks, one of the best shooters in the country in Kellen Grady, one of the best passers in the country in Xavier Wheeler, that roster is making a deep run, if not winning it all, because we beat Kansas by 20 or however much it was, 19 with that team. So imagine if you add a top 5 NBA draft pick.
We beat Kansas by 20 at Allen Fieldhouse, and then we beat UNC by like
30.
30, yeah. So, I mean, right there alone, you beat the 2 teams in the national title by a combined 50.
Yeah.
And then you have a top 10, top 15, probably for sure lottery on your bench that could have been playing.
And people want to act like, oh, there was nothing wrong with that team. We just choked. We just couldn't shoot. We just weren't that good. No, we had our top 3 guards were all playing banged up. Like none of that would have even happened. We would have been able to sit Ty for longer if we had Shaedon. Shaedon could have slid into that starting spot while Ty sits out until the tournament. He wouldn't have had to play towards the end of the season. He could have just chilled and fully healed. And same with Kellen. If Kellen's got plantar fasciitis, let the guy sit out for a week or 2 and put Shaedon in there. You've still got Mintz and Shaedon, and it's just this season would have gone so much different. I'm going to blame all our problems on Dwayne Washington. So us losing to St. Peter's, that's Dwayne Washington's fault. Shaedon never playing for Kentucky, that's Dwayne Washington's fault. And it's like, I like the kid. He seems like a good kid. He's an absolute baller. It's going to be hard for me to look at him as a Kentucky player in the NBA. We claim all these guys. I love watching Kentucky players in the NBA. That's kind of the only reason I watch the NBA, is to keep up with Kentucky players. But I don't think I'm going to be able to look at Shaedon Sharpe if he never plays a game for us. I don't think I'm going to be able to look at him and be like, yeah, that's a UK alum. We can claim him as, if he becomes a star, he's not going to be put on any graphics of like, look at all these NBA stars we have. Like, it's just frustrating how the whole situation went down.
I mean, I feel like for Kentucky's recruiting efforts, they'll try to slide Shaedon in there, but at the same time, I'm with you. I don't know if you can claim him because he was down to play, and then Dwayne Washington.
Yeah, man. And like, again, maybe he hears from the NBA, because I mean, this is entirely a possibility that the NBA is like, hey, we don't have enough film on you, bro. Like, our last film on you is high school. We don't want to take the risk and use a top 10 pick on you. I mean, he's got the talent, obviously, but he's a guy who was a 4-star up until like the last month or so of the recruiting cycle, where he then then he like started playing on these circuits and playing super well. and then got bumped up to the number one overall recruit. So it's not like the guy is always, it's not like he's an Amoni Bates who's always been seen as the number one guy. He shot up to being the number one player towards the end of his high school career. So it's not like these guys have been scouting him super hard for a long time. So it's unlikely he comes back, but if I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't get good feedback, because he's going to participate in the combine, but it wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, him and Tai Tai got invites to the combine, and while he was ruled eligible, the NBA's player union, NBAPU, was pushing against it the whole time.
Right.
So the fact that, and doesn't Damian Lillard lead that group? I think he does.
I think so, yeah.
The fact that you got Damian Lillard, one of the stars from the NBA, and then everyone else on that players union, I think Chris Paul is on there and a few others pushing against Shaedon Sharpe, and then the NBA just does that.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it, man. I mean, and I guess we could talk about the transcript stuff, how they're claiming that this whole time he graduated. What are they claiming? He graduated in October or something?
They're
At
claiming he
Sunrise
graduated
Christian?
in May.
May. Oh, yeah. He actually graduated in October and then came to Kentucky in December, but they're claiming he graduated in May of 2021, which just magically makes him eligible.
He
Like,
was doing homework during the AAU tournaments.
my man was still playing high school, and it's like that story doesn't add up because okay, he graduated in May, but then he chilled all summer, went back to school just to hoop in school and like stay in school. Like, why would he not try to go if he really wanted to get to the NBA as early as possible? If he actually graduated in May, why would he stay in school until October and hoop for high school and AAU and do all that until October and then enroll early? They were talking about oh man, this just gets me so heated. They were talking about how he's still finishing classes to graduate in like November or October. September, October, they're like, yeah, Shaedon Sharpe's trying to finish all his credits so he can enroll early at UK. Like that, I remember distinctly that conversation being had, that he had not yet finished school by that time.
But
So
the second that he declares, and there's all this rebuttal about how he might not be eligible, you know who it was? Dwayne Washington.
Yep. Dwayne Washington magically came up with this transcript from Sunrise Christian about, oh yeah, he graduated in May of last year, dude, for sure. And it just conflicts all the things that he said. It conflicts all the stuff they were saying about how he was still finishing classes in like September and October. And it's just, I don't know, it's so fishy, the whole situation. And the fact that the NBA is just allowing it to happen is just very infuriating. I wish
Dwayne
they would have
doesn't
just
even have his license to be an agent.
that was the next thing I was going to say. He failed the agent test. So like, how do you even believe a word this guy says if he was lying to Kentucky the whole time, and then he comes up with this magical fishy transcript that completely, rebukes everything he said in the past, and he fails the agency test, and you're still like, oh yeah, we believe him, he's eligible. Like, it just makes no sense, dude.
No, I think that was another big thing. The players union was pushing against the Sharpe situation because of Dwayne. Like that was one of their key points.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, man. It's just, again, I'll welcome the kid back. If he doesn't like it, or if for some reason they just say, never mind, you're not eligible, or if he doesn't like his feedback, please come back, dude. Like, I will not be mad at you. It's not even his fault anyway. So you're very much welcome back, Shaedon. It's just, I feel like kids like this need to, and I mean, Coach Cal alluded to it too, about how I think Coach Cal threw shots at Dwayne Washington. I don't remember the exact context, but it was something like, yeah, I'll talk to Shaedon and his parents and no one else about it, or something like that.
Yeah, that was the exact quote. He said, I have been talking to Shaedon and his parents. And then I think he left it at that. He didn't mention Dwayne at all.
Yeah, so it's like somebody needs to tell these kids that, hey, it's obvious Dwayne Washington sees Shaedon as a potential future NBA superstar, and so this is the first time he's even tried to be an agent or anything. It's because this is the best player he's ever had connections with. So it's like he has connections with this guy. Shaedon trusts him enough to make him his handler. So he's like, oh, dude, I'm going to get so rich off this kid. It's like, it's so obvious. He's just trying to make money off of him. And I just wish Shaedon's parents or Coach Cal, somebody would have been like, hey, dude, this guy is not good for you. He's leeching off you. You need to break away from him. You can figure this out without a guy like that in your corner.
Yeah. The whole Dwayne Washington situation, I remember back when I was still in school, I got out of chemistry one day, and it was like 12 o'clock, and all these reports started coming out about Dwayne, and I'm just like, yeah, that's the sole reason Shaedon won't play at Kentucky.
Yeah,
So, yep,
yeah, man, and it's just it leaves a bad taste in your mouth about the whole situation and what could have been. If Shaden's on next year's team, it's championship or bust. That roster alone, you got the potential number one pick, national player of the year. You're returning the leading Power 5 assist guy. You got a 47% 3-point shooter coming off the bench. You got two other top 15 recruits, including Cason Wallace, who's a top 5 recruit. You're returning a senior Jacob Toppin, junior Lance Ware. That roster, if you add Shaedon Sharpe to number one overall pick in next year's draft, that team immediately becomes arguably the best team we've ever had roster-wise at UK.
100%. But at the same time, which this is a little off topic, kind of not, you have Shaedon, who's never played in college, or you have Antonio Reeves, who averaged like what 24 last year, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, obviously, I still think even if Shaedon comes back, I think Antonio Reeves will be here. He's there's a place for him for sure. He's definitely good enough. But yeah, I mean that's the question. I think I saw a poll on Twitter that was like it was when we were considering Baylor Shireman, and some people were like, or the poll said, would you rather have Baylor Shireman and Antonio Reeves or Shaedon Sharpe comes back? And like most of the votes were for Shireman and Reeves because even though those guys played lower level basketball, you definitely want a guy who is, or you want guys who are proven. But at the same time, if you could have a guy who's good enough to be the number one pick, he's going to be playing like an NBA player while the rest of these guys are college players. Who knows if Baylor Sharman or Antonio Reeves will ever make it in the NBA? So it's like if you could have a guy who's good enough to play in the NBA right now on your team, you're going to take that 100 times.
Yeah, at that point though, you'd have maybe the number one pick in Sharpe and the National Player of the Year on the same team. So
Right. It would be
kind of,
ridiculous.
yeah, it off balances and which one you'd prefer.
I think either situation would. I mean, best case scenario is we keep Reeves and Sharpe comes back, but either situation is fine. I still do think for me to feel great, for me to feel perfect about next year's roster, there needs to be a proven backup point guard who can shoot. He doesn't have to be able to do the other stuff great. If we have a backup point guard who can come in and shoot the ball, because as of right now, the only guards we have that we know can shoot are CJ Frederick, who knows if he's going to be able to stay healthy, and Antonio Reeves, who knows how he's going to adjust to this increase in competition. So we still don't really have any guards back there who I'm 100% confident in as a high level 3-point shooter. Like Kellen Grady, people are frustrated with Kellen Grady at the end of the year, but he was incredible for the majority of the season. Outside of him being a little passive sometimes and not taking shots when he needed to, he did everything he was supposed to do. That's the type of player I want to have, and I'm not sure we have a guy like that on next year's roster right now.
Yeah, you get one more good backup point guard that can shoot, and I feel like this team is not national title or bust, but they're making a run in the tournament, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. And this one more thing I kind of want to talk about before we move on to the last topic is I've heard reports, and I'm sure you have as well, about how Adu Thiero's doctors don't think he'll stop growing until he hits 6'8". He's 6'5" right now. He's a 6'5" combo guard. And I think that might be part of the reason why Coach Cal took the guy because, yeah, he's got connections to his dad and stuff, but I just don't think Coach Cal would have offered this dude if he wasn't legit. If he wasn't built for this, I don't think he would be here. So looking at a guy who's currently a combo guard, he's currently technically a point guard in high school. He grows 3 more inches to 6'8". Like the amount of potential that Adu Thiero could have if he grows to 6'8" is ridiculous.
Yeah, I remember when he set his commitment date after visiting Kentucky. In my head, I'm like, oh, automatic Kentucky lock. And I pulled up his highlights, and I watched I think 4 minutes of like a 7-8 minute video, and I'm like, yeah, that 100%. We need him here, even if he doesn't contribute on the floor from day one in like games. Give him 2 or 3 years, and if he trusts the process, like these guys like Willie Cauley-Stein, Lance Ware, and Nick Richards, he'll be a contributor by year 3 or 4. I feel like.
Right, and he also might surprise people. If you remember, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander was a 4-star. He was underrated. He was outside of the top 150 until the end of the recruiting cycle. I think he finished, like 40th or something, or 31st or something like that. But Shea Gilgeous-Alexander was a similar guy. He's a guy who flew under the radar for a while, wide-shouldered, long wingspan guard who can kind of do. He's very smooth with the ball in his hands. He can do pretty much everything on the floor. It's kind of similar to Adu Thiero, and I think either one of two things will happen. Either he will not be ready and he'll just be practicing all year and he'll barely play for his freshman season, or he will be that backup point guard. Maybe that's why we don't go after another point guard, because maybe Coach Cal thinks Adu can be the backup point guard. But either way, he's either going to be not a contributor at all, or he's going to have a Shea Gilgeous-Alexander type impact. I mean, Shea was the most underrated player coming in, and they ended up being the best player on the team. So that's kind of how I feel about it.
If we don't go after another point guard, I think with Adu, if they do decide to put him at backup, I feel like it could work just for the sheer fact that his junior year, I forgot what he averaged, but his senior year, wasn't he averaging like close to 25 or 30? And like it was a near triple double, I think, with like 3 blocks and 4 steals a game.
Yeah, it was like 25 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists with like 2.5 blocks and like three or 4 steals a game. Like, yeah, it was crazy. And the only kind of iffy thing is he shot 29% from 3 in his senior year, but I think they said before he hit his growth spurt, he was like a 40% 3-point shooter. Like, he was a great shooter before his growth spurt. So he's probably still just adjusting to his arms growing and his body growing and stuff like that.
Yeah, that saying, iron sharpens iron, pressure makes diamonds. If he comes to Kentucky, at Kentucky, you're automatically competing with like the best of the best. So with him playing against Wheeler, Wallace, Livingston, if he's at 6'8", he'll be going up against Livingston a little too. So if you have him going up against M3, even others on the team, he 100% can only get better.
Yeah, I mean, going up and like even when you're being guarded by guys like Severe Wheeler's a great on-ball defender. He might be small, but he's a great on-ball defender. Dude, playing against Case and Wallace at all, like getting guarded by Case and Wallace in practice every day, there's no way you don't become better. If I'm getting clamped by Case and Wallace in practice, you got to find a way to get past a guy like Case and Wallace, who is going to be one of the best guard defenders we've ever seen. Like, I saw some Ashton Hagans comparisons. I think he's a better defender than Ashton Hagans by kind of a long shot. Like, I think Hagans was good at his positioning, at stealing the ball and stuff like that, but he wasn't like a guy who was just going to straight up clamp you and force you to pick up the ball and pass the ball and stuff. Like, that's who Cason Wallace is. He will stop you. So, he's built physically and athletically, and he's got the defensive instincts. Like, it's going to be so hard to get past him. So if Adu Thiero just practicing against Cason every day is going to make him a lot better. When he's practicing getting past Cason Wallace, like, you get past Cason Wallace, and then Damian Collins is waiting for you in the paint to block your shot. So he's going to be practicing against really good defensive players who are going to make him a lot better. And I think he definitely is a guy who will be a contributor someday, just because like you said, you watched his highlights. I watched his highlights too. He's very smooth. He can get to the rim with his length and his athleticism. He's not that fast. He really isn't like a super speedy guy, but his length, it just allows him to get from point A to point B really easily. He's got a good handle. So yeah, I'm excited for Adu Thiero. He's under the radar. People are gonna act like this is not a meaningful signing at all, but I do think he will be really solid eventually.
Oh yeah, no, he'll definitely be a contributor, but I think year 3 at least if he stays that long. But year 2, year 1, he could shock some people. So we just gotta let time tell its story.
And then to like kind of figure or finalize this topic, thinking a little bit more about that backup point guard position. Cason can slide over to the 1 if he has to. And I've seen people say Antonio Reeves is a guy who could run the point if we asked him to. I don't know if you've seen Antonio Reeves highlights. I'm sure you have. The dude is a bucket, obviously, but he's got a crazy handle. Like, he's got a crazy step back. He's like long arms, and he does those like wide swing crossovers and stuff. Like, he's got a good handle. He only averaged like 2 assists for Illinois State, but that's because he was doing all the scoring for them. So I think he can play the backup point. Cason can slide over to the 1. Maybe even CJ Frederick could run the 1 a little bit, similar to Davion. And then we do have Adu Thiero, who might be able to run the 1. And Jacob Toppin is a great playmaker, so if we need a point forward, we've got Jacob Toppin. So even if we don't land another point guard, I think the position is still stable enough to where I'm not too concerned.
Yeah, just that having that extra stability, I guess, with that backup point guard would mean a whole lot. But I feel like we could make it work without it. So it just got to see what the staff does with what scholarships they have left.
I just don't know. Like looking at the portal now, looking at who. I mean, because the portal deadline's over, right?
Um,
I think it was over the other day.
yeah, I think May 1st you had to be in the portal to be eligible for this season.
Right.
But I think all the people that are portaling, as they call it now, have to be at a new school by June 1st. I
Okay.
think is the rule.
So I mean, if you just look at who's in the portal right now, there's really no like Kentucky caliber point guards in the portal right now, in my opinion. So I just don't think. I mean, if I had to make a guess right now, I would say we don't add another point guard unless there's just some weird circumstance that comes out of nowhere, or unless we take a commitment from another school, maybe they decommit and come here. Like I just don't really see a situation where we get a high level backup point guard at this point.
Yeah, I think the roster is pretty much done. I've thought that for a while now, but you never know. Wasn't Kellen Grady came out of the blue last year, so
Right.
just gotta let time.
Yep, just let time take hold. And again, I'm comfortable with our roster right now. I wouldn't be mad at a couple more additions or in one more addition, but I still think with the roster we have, we're chilling. So,
Yeah.
the final topic today is a little more lighthearted. I just want to hear what your top 5 favorite UK basketball players are. Mine. I really started watching basketball. Like I was always a Kentucky fan growing up, but I didn't really get into it super hard. I didn't start loving it until like the John Wall year. So the Cal era has pretty much been my era. That's been the era that I've like most all my favorite players are from the Cal era. So I just want to hear your top 5 first, and then I'll give mine.
So for me, I guess my like the time I've been watching Kentucky would be the Cal era too. Are we putting these 5 in order, or are we just listing them?
And if you can't really decide between who you like more, then you can just list your 5. I'll probably just list my 5.
So my one of my favorite players to watch so far since I've been watching Kentucky basketball, De'Aaron Fox. So I got Fox in there. Oscar, just him on the court, and then like just everything he does, like praising Jesus and Twitter and helping out in the community. I have Oscar in there. Davis because of how dominant he was. The other two are kind of, I guess, up in the air. I really love watching Malik Monk. So this is personal, top 5 favorite. My personal Monk, and then probably just how electric Wall was, and he rejuvenized the Kentucky basketball fan base. I got to put Wall in there.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, mine is relatively similar. Of course, Anthony Davis is in there. Just, I mean, he's the only one to lead us to a championship in the last decade. He was so fun to watch. He caught every lob, he blocked every shot. And he really was just the soul. I mean, you look at, I mean, even just looking at him now versus who he was in college, you could tell he just enjoyed basketball more in college. Like he was yelling, he was talking trash, he was having fun out there. So AD is definitely in the list, if not number one, just because of he brought us a championship and he's definitely probably the best player in school history. Um, and then Tyler Eulis is up there. He's probably my favorite point guard to come through Kentucky. I just love the fact that no matter the fact he was undersized, he didn't care. He didn't make mistakes. He didn't turn the ball over. He didn't take bad shots. He shot a high percentage from the field. He shot a high percentage from 3. Every time he shot a 3, I thought it was going in. He knew when to pass, when not to pass. I think he had the best assist to turnover ratio in the country. He won the Bob Cousy Award. I just wish he had a better team that sophomore season because it was him and Jamal Murray, and then everybody else was not very good. So I do wish he had a better team around him so he could have done a little bit more. But Tyler is up there. De'Aaron Fox, he's probably it's hard to say, but he might be my favorite too. Like, and this is why you can't really rank them from favorite to least favorite, or from number 1 to number 5, because I love all these guys equally. But I got a signed De'Aaron Fox jersey in the other room. Like, De'Aaron definitely was one of my favorite as well. And then Oscar speaks for itself. National Player of the Year and easily the most likable Kentucky player that I've seen. Like, a lot of guys have been likable, but he's got a smile on his face all the time. He's kind. He's a good kid. He loves the community. He loves the fan base. I mean, he was the guy who was staying after games to sign autographs for at like an hour after a game, signing autographs for fans. Like nobody else is doing that. So I think that's four. Is that four? I think A-
Oscar,
AD,
Fox,
Oscar,
Ulis.
Ulyss, Fox. Okay, and so yeah, number five, excuse me, is hard. Um, at the time, I loved Jamal Murray. Like he at the time in 2016, I think Jamal Murray was like one of my favorites. But looking back on it, I do think I like Monk a little bit more just because I mean that game against UNC where he dropped 47, the fact that he hit like every contested three, he was clutch, like he was just so much fun to watch. That backcourt of Fox and Monk was just one of the most exciting teams. That's probably that 2017 team is probably my favorite Kentucky team. So I think Monk is going to slide into my top five as well.
Yeah, and then my sleeper, like my, I guess right outside the top five, Ulis, because 5'9", but there's that picture that went viral of him going up against that
Mm-hmm.
Auburn dude, Ulis, and then Tyler Hero. It's just every time I picture Hero at Kentucky, I picture I think we're playing Arkansas. He said, "I'm a bucket" after shooting that free throw.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I love Tyler too. And I mean, it when you really think about it, like I did a like ranking all of the Kentucky players in the Cal era. Like I did a list from literally worst to best.
I think I saw
And
that.
you did, yeah. And I did it. I did a video about it on TikTok and I posted it on Twitter, and that got so many interactions because people are arguing about it, like, oh, I can't believe you have Boogie this low, or oh, I can't believe Kevin Knox is this low. But it's so hard to rank these guys because we just have had so many amazing players. It's actually really sobering to look at the list of players who have come through here. You'll get all the way down to number 40 in the Cal era, and you're like, that guy was great for us, but he's the 40th ranked player in the Cal era. So it's like we just had so many amazing players come through here, and we can talk about how it's just super disappointing that we don't have a we only have one championship. But on that note, I would say Duke has lost, like Coach K lost to Lehigh and Mercer in the first round, second round of the tournament with great teams full of NBA players. He lost in the Elite Eight with the Zion Williamson, RJ Barrett team. That team was easily the best team in the country, lost in the Elite Eight. So
They almost lost in the Sweet 16, didn't they? To UCF.
yeah, they drastically underperformed, and then they lost to Michigan State in the Elite Eight. So
Yep.
Michigan State had like one pro on that team, and it's kind of how our 2015 team lost to Wisconsin, who had like Frank Kaminsky was the only long-term pro, and he's not even a good pro. So
Yep.
college basketball, it's just so hard to win championships. I wish our fans would just chill out. I mean, over the course of 100 years, 100 plus years, we have 8 championships, but that's the second most championships in the country, like in
Behind
history.
UCLA.
Yeah, and UCLA won like what was it, 8, 10 in a row. So I think it was 10 in a row. So it's like we're still like it's hard to win championships. 8 championships in 100 plus years, and we're still the most like one of, if not the most storied college basketball program. So next year is going to be interesting. I'm excited to see how next year goes. I'm excited to see what we can do with this roster, and I think Cal is either super close to just giving up. Like, I don't know if he's just tired of this or he's like going to come out with a vengeance next year and we're going to just wreck everybody. So I'm excited to see how next year goes.
Yeah, I don't think Cal is getting to like the Jay Wright, Roy Williams, or Coach K level, but I do have a sense that he's getting a little fatigued of college basketball.
Yeah, you can kind of just tell. I mean, especially like the 9 and 16 year obviously took a lot out of them. And then, of course, the tragic passing of Terrence Clark, that obviously took a lot out of him and all of us. And then, of course, this season, I have the book right here of this. It was like a yearbook for this year, and it says right here, "Rethink, retool, revenge." And this a quote by Cal that says, "Enjoy your time now. Next year's going to come soon enough." So he basically promised, "Hey, we're going to wreck everybody next year." And we had a good season. We had a really good regular season, and we're looking great. We're one of the favorites for the national championship, and then we suffer one of the worst losses in tournament history to a 15 seed. I literally never heard of St. Peter's in my life. Neither had Coach Cal. So, that's back-to-back super demoralizing seasons, and you've got the pressure from the fan base. You got people calling for your job. You're not winning these recruiting battles as much as you used to. You're not landing the number one recruit anymore. And then when you do land the number one recruit, he doesn't even play for you, and he like just uses you as a springboard to get to the NBA. So there's all this stuff going on. I do think it is definitely fatiguing him.
Yeah, I'm just gonna. We're not gonna fire Cal. That's in my no. But I'm just gonna, because after the 9-16 year, COVID played a role in that. I'm just gonna give it a few more years to see where Cal takes this team, because I feel like it's gonna get better, but the fan base is impatient after that 38 in 1 year.
Yeah. And
So
it seems like ever since then we haven't really recovered. Our best shot was 2017. We lose on a heartbreaker buzzer beater by Luke May against UNC, and it's just like we've come so close so many times. And I think that's why this fan base is so frustrated and so fatigued, because we've come close many, many times, and people will blame Coach Cal for choking and not making good adjustments and leaving Devin Booker on the bench against 2015. The 2015 loss to Wisconsin, and then losing on a buzzer beater. I mean, that De'Aaron Fox team was the best team in the country. There's no doubt about it. If we'd have beat UNC there, we would have won a national championship.
Whoever won that game was winning the title that year, 100%.
Without a doubt. And that, we win that game, and that would be another Final Four appearance. So it's like we've come so close so many times over the last few years, and then we have back-to-back heartbreaking, just terrible. Like last year was just awful for obvious reasons, and then we just get let down again this year. So I understand the frustration from the fan base, but hopefully Cal can turn it around. Next year's roster is looking better from top to bottom than this year's roster. So I have faith, and Coach Cal's gotten us very far, and he's made good adjustments, and he's adjusted with the rest of the game. So I do think that we just need to be a little patient. If we lose in the first round or we don't make the tournament next year, then that's when I think we can start having the conversation that, what, he's done, but I mean, his buyout's too big for us to fire him anyway. So he's either going to have to retire or go somewhere else for that to even happen.
Yeah, I don't see him retiring anytime soon, though.
Yeah. So that's all the topics for today. I think this was a good success. I had a ton of fun, discussing this. This was the first episode of the Kentucky Connection Pod. I'm how you feeling about it? I'm feeling good about it.
I'm feeling good. I'm finally happy we got this to actually be a thing.
Yeah, man. Like I said at the beginning, we've been discussing this forever, and it's mostly my fault because I kind of had the, I knew what I had to do. I just kept putting it off, and I kept forgetting about it. And, I've always wanted to have a podcast. I've always wanted to have a discussion, and I'm glad, I wouldn't have done it by myself. So I'm glad I'm doing it with you, because I wouldn't be doing this by myself. So I'm glad you agreed to do it. I think that, once we get this more figured out, it'll be a little smoother, a little more seamless, but I had a blast with it, and, I'll put it out on all these different platforms, and hopefully people like it.
Hopefully. I mean, they should. I felt good.
Yeah, they should. And like I said, guys, it'll be on YouTube, the visual version, with all this visual stuff, it'll be on YouTube, but I'll also try to post on Spotify and Apple Music or Apple Podcasts, whatever else I can post on. I'll find a way to get it on all platforms. So, but yeah, all right, we'll catch you guys in the next one. I don't know how often we're gonna do this. It might be weekly, it might be bi-weekly. It just depends on how fast news starts coming out, because it's going to, obviously, we have to have things to talk about. So we'll just see how things go. But you guys have a good rest of your day. Hope you enjoyed the pod, and we'll see you in the next one. Go Cats.
Go Cats.